I am unashamed. What about you?
So here we go. As promised on the Unashamed podcast, we have our sister and your daughter, Dad, and Mom too. Because
yes.
What do you call Mom, Phyllis?
My special mom.
Special Mom, which is awesome. So it's weird. It's wild. It's I guess it's different for us because we obviously had a few months to process and meet and talk, but it's still kind of crazy. And what's so funny, Phil, is we're so known as like the four brothers. And of course, like I'm the one usually that's because I don't have a beard all year that gets the scapegoat. But now there's a girl, so
There's
you're
two beardless
we're the only two ones without beards. Yeah. But they say that's
But did you see how he packaged that? He's the weird brother, but he said I'm the one that I don't have a beard.
So now we're both weird.
No, trust me, I know both of you long enough to know he's more weird.
And you're not weird at all, right?
I don't think so.
So Mom and Miss K, of course. So Mom, before we get into more of our story that we started last time, so Jase mentioned a couple of podcasts ago that he had a Mother's Day gift for you.
Oh, yeah.
And he told the audience what it was going to be, which was $1,000, $100 bill.
$100
So
bills.
he said he did it to be able to buy you off because you've been on him about the plane or whatever we've been arguing about this time. So
because he's too tired to pay for half the plane, I know.
I know. So,
but he tells me all about winning on the stock market. So see, that's just like winning.
It's not really winning. It's investing with a payoff. But anyway, that's fine.
Yes. So I have a problem with you telling me all that. And then when I asked you to pay half of something, it's like World War III.
No, the argument that I thought we had ended with the payoff was that Phil said, I have a free plane.
Yes. And
so
that was
have you had a free plane before?
No, I would like somebody to go up there right now and try to get a free plane from the man that does that.
I
and
did
you'll
think
get
it was
nothing.
weird. Speaking of weird, but I went
Jason.
with it. And then when I got the bill for the free plane, I thought, well, that must not have been free.
Yeah, Jase was hoping for the free plane. That's what
And then
I just thought I got hustled by my parents, so I just brought it up because I thought
and you
next
didn't
time
pay half. You paid only a third.
because you felt guilty because of what your husband did, and therefore I said, I'll tell you what, I'll pay whatever you feel I need to. And you said, okay, give me a third. I said, okay.
So
Don't remember all that.
That's just all Hillary Clinton.
Side.
I don't recall. We just went into I don't recall. So did the $1,000? Did it buy you off? Are you happy now?
I forgave him that second that I saw those $100 bills in there. I said, all forgiven, love and war.
She has really been really nice. Then I have a new prediction.
Her attitude changed.
I know.
Just boom.
People say, what can $1,000 buy? We know it can buy forgiveness.
But then I don't want to start another argument, but then I made a prediction. I said, I predict that within 7 days, I told Missy this, that Miss K, my mom, will give away that $1,000. She will just give it away.
Well, within an hour, she gave me 100 of it. So
there we go.
As a tip. That's right. I got 100.
Well, and Anna got a tip.
What you are hearing, Phyllis, is kind of a spinoff of the old old movie, Being John Malkovich. This is like being a Robertson.
I've never even heard of that movie, Phil. Where are you watching
I
that?
can't believe you remembered that.
I didn't watch it. I just saw it advertised. This is like
a
being a Robertson.
Being John Malkovich. That's funny.
I have
That Dad would
nothing.
remember
I
that.
don't know who that is. I'm worried to even research it, and I don't know what to say.
I like it's an actor. I
Jase,
like
you
the
need to
actor.
get out more.
Phil, I'm out. You're not. That's what's
get off our stock
disturbing.
market.
That's what's disturbing.
I mean, get out mentally.
Well, look, this has come back from 30 years. I don't know how you remember that.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean,
That's
Phil
a
has
miracle.
not left this 7 acres in months. and
I
he's
have
telling
not.
me
That's true.
to get out more. I'm leaving here in about an hour. So, I mean, I thought I was
you're
out.
really going out to a lot of places. You're going to your corner.
I'm
at the house.
almost to the Jeremiah Johnson line when the old mountain man said, you might ought to get out of these mountains and get down there and go back to one of the towns down there. And old Jeremiah Johnson said, I've already been to a town.
Ooh, that was a mic drop moment there.
Need we say more?
I've already been to
Phyllis,
a town.
I'm feeling the need to just apologize again. I feel like every time I turn around, this is kind of
I
embarrassing.
have at least seen that movie. So I have
Have you?
seen that one. Yes, sir.
You saw
There you go.
Jeremiah Johnson?
Yeah.
Or,
Oh, yeah, I love that
did
movie.
you see Being John Malkovich?
I think I might have seen it. I definitely have heard of it, but
I
I can't
like.
remember it.
You remember the
You
best
know-
role John Malkovich played to me? You remember when Eastwood was the Secret Service agent in the line of fire?
The villain?
He was the villain.
Oh, that's
That's
John
John
Malkovich.
Malkovich. He
How
was
would
the
you
villain.
even know who that is?
He's a very good actor.
He's good. Remember that when? Remember he was the bad guy. In
Oh,
that?
yeah.
He played a good one.
Oh, I know.
He made
Yeah.
that gun out of wood, and then
Oh,
he
yeah.
shot that duck out on the water. And the two rednecks run up there, and they had things. Well, let me shoot it. They shot it, and then he just shot them both.
Yeah.
Well, that
He was a
seems-
killer.
That seems kind of
Violent.
morbid.
Oh well, I mean, he was.
It's a violent movie.
I haven't watched it, nor do I plan to.
Well, you're missing a good movie. Is all I can say. So anyway, Mom,
Yes.
we talked a lot about you on the last podcast.
I hope it was all good.
It was all good.
Well, yeah. We did
Thanks.
talk about the argument that was been going on, but it's been paid for.
For me and
so,
you? For
yeah.
30 years? No, 50. 47.
No, he's
I'm not good with
I could
figures.
start
he's
talking.
50, but he probably couldn't argue till he started talking. So we
He
can say
was
49 to be safe.
He was 3.
He was
So
3 before he
40s
started talking.
well,
no
before it
wonder he's
made
so
any
strange.
sense.
Well, Kay came up with this line. She said that we had only had one argument, and I thought that was weird. And she said it lasted 47 years.
That's true. I
That
did
is
say
true.
that.
These two are like oil and water. So, no, I'm talking about we talked about you on the last podcast when we talked about Phyllis. And so I wanted you to talk a little bit about it. Obviously, we explained Jase and I getting the letter, kind of how we went through that process. And so I mentioned that when I went out to talk to you and Dad, because there was kind of like a process, it took a couple of weeks before we were trying to figure out what we were going to do. And then I just felt like I had to let you guys know because we were going to have to try to figure out, is this true or not true? And so that night was really interesting. And I talked about that. I felt like you knew a lot of stuff about it. It really convinced me because I wasn't sure. And Dad
No,
didn't know.
I knew.
He didn't remember anything. You knew a lot.
I knew a lot.
And
I
so-
knew a lot he didn't know.
Well, right. And I had never really thought about it before. If you had two people walking through a period of your life, and one is basically either drinking or on drugs the whole time and is not, in their own mind, but the person,
a heathen.
and the person who's with him, though, is not living that way. So you would tend to remember a lot, from that era. And so it was really interesting, I think, your initial reaction to the whole thing. So he mentioned that you said for years that you knew one of these days a person was going to show up that you
I said a boy because I just
You thought there'd be a
assumed
son,
a man. Yeah,
because of that period of his life.
because I'm a prophetess, really.
No, she was saying that if there might be, it would be a son.
Right,
maybe,
right.
Yeah,
right.
looking like y'all.
For kind of
Right.
weird reasons, I guess.
Did you ever imagine it would be a daughter?
No, that was the bright surprise of it all. I never
What are you trying to
thought
say?
he could produce a girl. What can I say? I mean, I wanted a girl the whole time, and no can do. When Jep was born, the doctor told me he was going to be a girl. He lied.
Well, he sort of was.
No, he wasn't. He lied. And then I said, and then Phil said, just what I wanted, another boy. You did say that. I know you don't recall. You recall the movie, but not this, but it's okay. And so I was just thrilled beyond belief.
So, and you knew that night, you told me, like as soon as I read you the letter and showed it to you, you said, oh, this is true.
Yeah.
And it was
I
really
did.
interesting because we had not, and Dad's not sure because he don't remember and he doesn't know anything, but it was amazing that instantly you were like, oh, this is true. This is her. This has got to be the one. And I found that fascinating because I was not convinced. I thought the evidence was looking like it had a very good chance, but I wasn't sure. And then Dad didn't know much, so that didn't help. But it kind of convinced me that it probably was because you were so convinced that it was.
I knew it.
You know what's weird to me, what I thought, I didn't share this before, but as many of us that have used DNA as an illustration of the evidence of God, I mean, I've used that hundreds of times in
Size
speeches.
used it too.
And what's weird is
Jase means coherently use it. Jase uses it coherently. So.
I mean, let's save that for a later podcast.
If we had happened to be in this situation in an era where there was no DNA,
which wasn't too long ago.
she would have never found her dad, and I would have never found my daughter.
That's
ever.
right.
That's right. But I've always used it as an evidence as far as just how in the world does the evolution process coming from an explosion or what you always say, seaweed or salt water, all that. We always use that because it's the most sophisticated code that we've ever run upon, and it's in our bodies. And so we're always like, well, who wrote the code? And now you have this code as actually a way to remove all doubt. I mean, I've used that illustration in my speeches. I'm like, how much? Because remember you said, now, how sure are we about this DNA? I was like, oh, we're sure. Because if your DNA is at a crime site, you're in trouble. I mean, that's how they look. I mean,
99.99.
we trust him. And so to me, it was an evidence, even more than that, of God and how he worked, what you read last time in Romans 8. I truly believe that.
So let Phyllis tell her story from start to finish, and we'll see how she ended up finding me.
Well, and first of all, Phyllis, just welcome. Like, I guess this is the first time we're doing this publicly. So I've been anticipating this for a while because obviously all of us speak for a living. I preach, we speak, Jase, all of us do a lot of interviews and a lot of stuff. And so I've been highly anticipating, excited about being able to introduce you to the people that follow us and listen to us. And because to me, it's a compelling story of finding, connection to people. And it was very evident when we all met you that DNA, your genetics, so much about you fits so much about us. And we all recognized it very early on, even by phone before we met you. Which was amazing. So we'll take a quick break, and then I want you to tell about kind of what began your quest, why you were looking for your dad. So let's take a quick break. So we got Zach with us, of course, my business partner. And so Zach's a business guru. I guess he would be our family business guru. I guess unless you counted Willie. I don't know. But which Willie,
Willie may object to that assertion.
He would.
So, Zach, how important are HR people to organizations? I mean, big organizations, would you say?
And
You
you
gotta have
mean
'em.
human resources.
Human resource.
Because when he first did this, I thought he was talking about home runs. I thought, well, of course, if you had a softball team, you need somebody to be able to hit some home runs.
Well, that's right. And I forgot what Dad thought. He thought it was something else. Human resources, what we're talking about.
So, you have collected at the table here, at one time, the world's greatest spades player, so card player, and one Jason Robertson.
Okay.
That was before his beard turned a little gray. I don't know. He
Thanks for
was
noticing.
on the internet talking with the, Manhattan, big dogs and all this stuff.
You lost me.
So you got them, but then you got like the guys, the financial type, y'all two, Jase is in the stock market, and you got me, who helped bring y'all forth, and it's just a scary thing to unveil. If you know what I'm
Welcome to
saying.
the show,
to
Zach.
investigate.
I get it now.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, Zach. So, anyway, that being said, from Dad, small businesses, Zach and I have a small business, and so, it's hard. You have human resources needs, but how do you do it? Because you don't want to hire a person. Money, benefits, all this stuff. So we got a company, Bambi. but not B-A-M-B-I, B-A-M-B-E-E, Bambi, Bam to the B, that basically has a virtual HR guy or gal for your business. So you want to check these guys out. You get a dedicated HR manager. They're available by phone or email, real-time chat, which is important these days. And with the coronavirus, this is especially good. So month to month, no hidden fees. You cancel anytime. Check them out. Bambee.com, BAMBEE.com/Robertson. And if you go there now, you get a free audit. So that's BAMBEE.com/Robertson.
So it's been 2 or 3 years ago. My oldest son's fiance bought him a DNA kit, and he was interested in learning his ethnicity. He completed the kit, sent it in, got it back, and looked at his little pie chart. It tells you how much of this or that you are from wherever you are in the world. And he said, he told us it doesn't make sense. There's some stuff missing here that we were told was part of our ethnicity. And I looked at it, I'm like, you're right. This isn't matching up to what we've been told. So I called my brother and mentioned it to him, and he said, well, something doesn't line up there. Either, our dad's not your dad, or everything we've been told isn't true. I have a sister, I have a brother and a sister.
I mean, I'm sure that had to be just a shock. But you had told me before you always kind of felt something wasn't right.
I wasn't shocked. I really wasn't. It just kind of was like, I'm thinking this might be kind of a moment where I learned that what I've suspected all along might be true. My sister had people in the family make comments to her, like, your dad's not her dad kind of thing. So she was on it. She wanted to find out, and she did a DNA test. And so I finally did one. And when I did, it came back that they were my half-siblings. So I knew for a fact at that point. And what that does is it allows you to then investigate. You can find out who your DNA matches are. Who are you related to? So I could quickly see from the paternal side, these are the names that I was coming up with, surnames. And, little digging, internet searches, looking through the site, and put together a family tree, so to speak. My husband helped me with it. We could fill in a lot of blanks, and then it kind of got down to just a few blanks and had it narrowed down. And I'm like, I think I know who this might be. Yeah. And then
you're like, oh, and fortunately, I think I remember asking you, I was like, you ever seen that show, Duck Dynasty? And you were like, no, I haven't. And you are apologizing. And I'm like, oh, no, don't apologize. That's going to be very helpful moving forward. I didn't want the shock.
We just, it just so happened that maybe when it was first coming out, we'd heard of it and we knew about it, but we never watched it. And then we went on the mission field for 5 years when your show was really running and popular, and we just didn't get it. So we never watched it. It just did never come up. It was not on our radar.
It just seems like an amazing coincidence to me. But
especially for something so well known.
It's helped.
Yeah, and the fact you didn't really know us through that at all.
I had no preconceived ideas, really. I tried to watch a couple episodes just to thinking, hey, get to kind of see who they are. And I knew, that this is reality TV, how much of this is actually reality versus not. And it felt like, that's not what I want my first impression to be. I want my first impression to be not that what I was seeing was, that wasn't good, because it was a funny and wholesome show and I enjoyed it. Yeah. It's just that I wanted my impressions and first impressions of you to be what my impressions were with you, and not through the lens of a television show. That's how I felt.
Which was a good way to view that, because my take on the show, because I was late to the show because I wasn't in the first 3 seasons, that everybody, obviously there's a lot of multifaceted personalities. And so Willie kind of got locked in early on as the bad guy because he's running the company, and all that's true.
He has a little side to him that's difficult at the working environment.
He does. But he's also super funny, and like a lot of the elements of his personality you didn't get to always see on the show. So if you only had that one prism, you would miss some of that. It's like
exactly.
Jase, the serious side of Jase that people love, his teaching, his ability to do the Bible.
Every
you wouldn't have got that from the show.
Every time I would get serious on the show, edit. They
didn't want him that way. So, it's an element of his personality. So you're right. If you had only viewed it through that lens, you would have missed something.
Exactly.
Right.
We prayed about this a lot. We got counsel from people that were close to us, godly people. And we thought, how do you write a letter like this no matter who it is. We didn't want to disrupt someone's life. I knew he is married. I did not want to hurt her. And we talked about, I heard you talking about Zach calling me for the first time. And that was one of the first questions I asked him is, how would Miss Kay feel about this? Because if this is something that's going to upset her, we can stop this right now. And he said, oh no, she's a loving, forgiving, nurturing person. And I was just like, okay, that's great. Good news to hear. So we did pray about it. And for us, we are believers. We've been going to church for years, a lot of ministry, working in the church. And to us, church was a safe landing place. And so we knew that you had pastored and a part of your church, elders at your church, and I kind of dug around on the Whites Ferry Road Church
It is
website.
easy to find some stuff about us.
It is.
I mean, Dad wouldn't know about it, but you can find out some
Yeah.
information about the Robertsons.
Now, what
Searches or
point did you
something,
realize, okay, a lot of this I'm reading may not necessarily be true?
I didn't read a lot of it. I tried not to, and
Yeah.
the few people we told, as soon as I would say something, there was the initial and then they'd pick up their phone and start looking stuff up, and I'm like, I don't want to hear all of that. I don't.
Well, right, because a lot of it, obviously, on the internet is not true. But you were reading the true stuff. So,
So we decided we crafted a letter. We mailed one to the church. We also, because we were digging around on that website, saw that you were preaching. I think the last Sunday of December at the church.
Yeah.
And,
which I don't know if
Jase
you
was
ever
in
knew
charge that
this.
day.
That is the only time in the history of my church involvement that they ever let me be in charge.
All the sensible people were gone, and it was like,
Well, they were
we're
gonna
turning over
look.
the keys to Jase.
I made a comment, like I often do, because I can't keep my mouth shut.
Amen.
Got an amen from Miss Kay.
Easy. She's trying to get another 1,000.
Yeah.
I made a comment because I said, what are y'all doing? Because we do the worship. I said, what are y'all doing for the Sunday in between Christmas and New Year's? And they said, oh, we were just going to have a church meeting, like kind of a meeting of the
From the
church.
state of the church.
I said, that is the dumbest idea I've ever heard, which I shouldn't have said that. And so they said, will you do it? And I thought, well, I shouldn't have said that, And I said, well, I just
dial
will.
that back a little
So I
bit.
thought, remember we were in the duck blind, and I said, why don't you preach and we'll sing? I'll do the little speech for the Lord's Supper. And I said, I'll get all the kids down there and we'll do something for them. And so we did that, and that is the one Sunday that you visited.
I had nothing
And
to compare it to, and I thought you did fabulous.
And he hadn't been up there on that pulpit for a while.
Couple years.
Well, and then with Jase, he did such a good job. Then we haven't met since. We've been in quarantine, so we're just waiting to get back so he can take back
So
over.
you're
It just
seeing me
shows-
give a lesson, and you're in the audience. I'm your father, you're my daughter, but we've never seen each other for 45 years. So
Oh,
what,
yeah,
were
I
you,
never
what were you
saw each
thinking?
other.
Well, never. You never.
You never
didn't know.
saw her. You
45
weren't there
seconds.
when she was a baby.
Never saw her.
So what did you think? I mean, you're like,
I thought, how cool is it that first I'm seeing my dad, he's preaching the gospel, because your message was the core gospel. I mean,
Yeah.
that to me was like, that's a cool dad.
You said
Yeah.
something.
That's really good.
You said something, Phyllis, that struck me early on. I can't remember when you said it, but when we were talking about when you were born, I said, what? By that time, Dad was converted. By the time you were born, because obviously, months earlier he was not. And you said, well, I like the idea that when I came into this world, that my dad was now a believer.
Already a believer.
Right, which was really powerful. I thought that was a really neat
that
perspective.
is pretty amazing.
So you were born, and he was born again.
In the same
Absolutely.
year. That's
In the
exactly
same
right.
year.
Yeah, you made that observation. I thought that what a neat thought.
People sometimes wonder if God still works today, Just bringing that
Hearing
up.
these circumstances and the way God orchestrated all of that, I just see God in every step of the way. I don't believe in coincidences. That you happen to have a letter and you forgot things, or you were preaching, you usually don't, and you read it. Just,
Yeah.
I don't. There can't be that many coincidences. God was in this story and writing this story, and is
So what did you do with the letter you had? You were sitting there, and
She was going to give it to you.
And Jase is handling the music part.
The
and
problem
you have
was
the letter.
I was in charge that day, and so there was a lot of things going through my mind, which is kind of unusual.
When he's already said he's in a fog anyway.
And I'm
so put him
normal-
in charge in a fog, and
And so then it was. I'll let you tell about the meeting.
Yeah.
Well,
Because you were like, yeah, tell me.
I was nervous. I sat out in the parking lot thinking, am I going to really do this, go in here? And my husband was a cheerleader. He was like, you can do this. Like, you've come this far. You can do this. So we made it into the building. We're sitting in the pew.
Every next step as
I'm
you
like,
go.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. And, you walked in with like an entourage of bodyguards.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we know those.
I
bodyguards.
can't just go hand him a letter, I'm like,
the truth?
What are they carrying? I don't know.
They were carrying
They
weapons.
were carrying. I
I'm sure
guarantee that.
I figured
Yeah.
that. And I just, at one point I cried. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And then you bugged out pretty quickly, like right away. And I'm like, well.
That is so unlike that, too, to just bug out fast.
Oh, gosh.
That never happens.
So I was sitting there and I just was like, I just got this, whatever it is that came over me. I thought, okay, I'm just going to go give this letter to you. So I walked right up to you, just... Here you go. Here's this letter. Will you please give this to your dad? It's really important to me. And you were like, sure. You were super friendly and just kind of
that's
patted
good.
Tony on the shoulder and just, hey,
Miracle
guys.
happened again.
No, okay.
You
Maybe
said-
you need to get out more.
Where are y'all from? Oh man, I'm glad that you came to service today. You were super friendly, and talkative, and you put it in your bag. And I'm like, well, hey, that
And
might
he
actually
got
get
in
doing.
Didn't ever thought about it again.
And he got
Never
in the
thought
truck,
about it
read
again
it.
until he got the second letter. That's
But
Okay.
I'm glad I was friendly.
Things that
Yeah.
you've said since then, like I lose my phone and this and that.
Yeah.
You have a nephew who's a lot like you, so it's okay.
So the letter comes to Jase. What do you do with the letter?
Hang on. Let's take a break and then tell Jess. So, Dad, I've been telling you about Omega XL, which I've been taking now for about a month.
Yep.
And you tried it, huh, Phil?
Yeah,
I
and
tried
Give
it.
us a report.
yeah, give us your
They
report.
tried it. I tried it, and there is no doubt about it. Your legs get a little achy from time to time. 74 years old, walking, tired, going around through mud. I started taking those things. About a week.
You've been taking about a week. Yeah.
About a week or 10 days. I thought, you know what? My legs feel a whole lot
I
better.
mean, at your age, anything better is the goal.
There you go.
Moderately better helps.
Yeah. So I say kudos to the pristine waters of New Zealand with the mussel shells.
There you go. So these things come from mussel extract. We talked about it before. Really good product. Basically helps with inflammation. Dad is, and look, they tell me it gets better like at the 8-week mark.
And I'm not dreaming, thinking maybe it. No, it did.
We might ought to go catch some mussels down here and
can start
run them
eating
through the
mussels.
testing
Freshwater
process.
mussels in the river. That
That's
might
exactly
work.
right. So we want you to promote a healthy immune response. It helps your immune and anti-inflammatory, which is really good. So here's what you do. OmegaXL.com/Phil. OmegaXL.com/Phil. If you order now, you get your second bottle free.
I will say that's the only pills I take.
And I didn't even know if you'd do it, but you said, when I told
I don't
us
take pills, but
it
with
helped
that,
me.
I tried that, Al, on
It's
your
natural. That's right.
recommendation. Yeah.
Omega.com/Phil, or you can call them 800-844-4888. 800-844-4888. Omega.com/Phil, and help your joints.
So here's the weird part. Phil, I've told you this, but we're not connecting. So I have that letter, but I didn't read it. So then days later, weeks later maybe?
About a week.
A week later, I stop at Duck Commander,
On his way here.
where she also had sent a letter. They handed me your mail. It's the same letter that I have in my bag. It's another version of it because she was smart enough
I
to
didn't
realize.
know that. I'm
yeah.
just now getting this information.
So I came
That's why
down,
we're telling the story.
and then when Al and I go through the letter,
Because she had also
I
sent
go
one to the
back
church
and
that
look
I-
at the original, and I'm like, oh, I already had this. You see, that's how it happened.
So that's how we all had we had the three
So
copies.
how
of it.
long? So y'all read it,
And it
well,
was
then the
another-
process.
and I'm
that-
still not
that
aware of
started.
anything.
It was another 10 days or so before that night I came down and talked to your mom. So that process, that's what we were trying to figure out. Do we do a DNA test with somebody else in the family? Because our thinking was if one of the cousins or even one of us did a DNA test, would it then show up where we found it? And so, but then there was a lot, I didn't know enough about it. Finally, I just said, Zach and I decided, look, let's just let's just tell them. Let's just see about this thing. And I knew ultimately a paternity test was the only way we could know for sure. And so I was glad that Dad agreed to do that, which was important.
This whole thing made me think. We're in the book of John now, and the next chapter that we'll get to is John 7. But Jesus, he would wow the crowd with what he said, obviously, because he's the Son of God. And their attack on him was every time they would get caught up in listening, they would go back to, oh, but you're from Galilee. So this can't be, well, you can't be who you say you are. You can't be from God. And I kind of think about that in that process of trying to figure out, is this real? Our first impression was always, well, it can't be. I mean, this surely not.
We would have known earlier. You try to think of all. How do you
not know? Remember? I think I asked you that. I'm like, how do you not know this? And you were like, hey, it was pretty well a 10-year foggy.
It was a blur.
Yeah, I mean, you're on drugs and you're doing things that you don't even remember. And so, but I thought about that just because when good-hearted people use godly principles, and a lot of them have been used in this process, is love and forgiveness and all these qualities. It's amazing how all of a sudden it becomes back to these powerful qualities that Jesus was showing. All of a sudden it's like a light bulb comes on,
right. Which makes a big difference. I mean, obviously, and you're right. It's trying to imagine. You're imagining so much because then you start thinking about it. It was hard for me to sleep during this period of time because my mind was just spinning with the possibilities, and part of me was excited because if it was true, I mean, I have a sister out there, and so that was kind of the way we had the conversation.
Y'all basically said, okay, Dad, they take your DNA.
We had to walk it through.
They're going to take her DNA. We're going to see if it matches, and I'll get back with you.
That's right. And so that kind of led up to this moment, and we thought we would get the results back in 24 hours, but then it turned out it was like a couple of days. It took longer, which was just excruciating for us. And then we also had a trip planned, so when we were gone, we weren't even here with Dad, so that's why I had to call him to tell him, and so I hated that we weren't here. But I want to talk a little bit about that, Phyllis, from your perspective. So,
I wanted to say one thing, Al, before you do that, because I don't think I told Phyllis this, but so I hear this. Basically, I said for about 3 days, like probably once an hour, I'd say, I have a sister. It was like, and I'd go on, I was like, I have a sister. And then I started doing that out loud to Missy. And she's like, yep.
So your mother never told you that I was your father. She never told you that.
No.
So nobody knows. And so look, I have answered questions my whole Christian life about situations. And I've had people on the couch saying, here's the situation, and it's been things like this and what you do. But here I am in my own moment saying, well, how am I going to handle this? Because part of me was upset that, well, my dad was leading a sinful life. He betrayed my mom. This is a reminder of that. Then part of me was like, well, here's this woman, because we had already, dug on your life too. And I'm like, she seems awesome. I mean, this is because I've always been a champion for people who have to do it the hard way. And unfortunately, you had to. You're in a situation of, that you didn't choose or whatever, that's made it really hard, I think, to find a purpose in life and a meaningful relationship with God. But I've always had a heart for those kinds of people, because people I share Jesus with, people that have, been abused or had bad, childhoods, it always inspires me to see them just say, this is it. This is the moment. I'm putting my faith and trust in Jesus. They forgive their, past aggressors or whatever. And I just always champion those people. So what I did was I read 1 Corinthians 13. I'd like to read it just because I was sitting on my couch 3 days into this information, and I thought, how do I respond? And I just thought, I need a reminder of the most probably commonly used section of Scripture in the Bible, but it says, love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. And I would kind of stop and think, okay. It does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects. It always trusts. It always hopes. It always perseveres. Love never fails. So then I was like, well, that's what I'm going with.
But her quest to find out seems to not be based on maybe I'll find he's a good man, maybe I'll find out he's a bad man.
She just wanted to know.
I think what she's saying is, who am I? Who is my father?
Yeah.
I wanted it to answer some questions in a way because I knew it's like I knew always growing up something was different. I was different, physically different, some personality differences, just the way I approached life and did things. I always went to church. My parents never took me to church. Grandparents didn't go to church with me. I went on my own. It was weird. To everyone else around me, people would make comments, but I always went. I'd walk to the nearest one, or I'd go with a friend, or I always found a way to go to church. And my testimony is that I stayed in school, graduated school, and did well, and wanted to do well. And my relationship with the Lord, and those two things are what brought me out of a childhood such that I had, and I think that's just God's grace. Yeah. And I can say to people also, like what you've said, when I've worked with people who have had backgrounds that were tough, you can use that as an excuse to live a life that is not a great life, that is not a moral life or a godly life, or you can use it as a reason to say, I'm not going to live like that. I choose to do different.
Yeah. So when the call comes to me from Al after the DNA test on my part and your part, and I said, what about it? Because I knew he was going to call and tell me. And he said, it's a match. I said, call her up, get her down here. I said, get her down here. So then we waited until she arrived, and we met at
hang on. Before we tell that story, let's take a quick break. Yeah, I want to get into that. That was really powerful. So we had probably within 2 or 3 weeks after we all knew, we lined up for you to come down, and you have 2 sons and their fiancés came with you guys and your husband. And so what was that like for them? Like, how did they take all this? Because obviously you guys were all kind of searching together. Then you find it. And I'm curious as to what their thought process was leading up to you guys coming down here. Were they excited? Were they apprehensive?
Like, well, this is interesting. Let's see what happens, And our oldest son is very much when I see this on paper, then I'll believe it. I see what you're saying, but he wanted to see proof of it.
Right.
They remind me of me.
So me too.
So the youngest he's our rolling stone, is what we've always said, and he said, hey, if this is true, then this will be interesting. We'll go for it. And the oldest is, hey, I don't know. Yeah. We'll wait and see. So so they were excited though. You and Lisa have been an anchor. I call you my pastor brother now because you're very much a pastor, and I was getting text messages, and there's no roots, right? No roots at this point. So every time I would get that message, it would be like reaffirming to me, like, okay, yes, they really want to reach out to me.
We pretty much texted every day. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was important.
Yeah.
Like, and
I called you at some point in there.
You did. And it meant a lot. Like, everybody kind of messaged me, and everyone had their own little personality, like Willie's like, I'm the coolest one or something like that. They all have their
He's
way.
also a liar. Yeah, that's right. But now you know.
And even
Shocker.
our wives, like, it was beautiful that everyone chose to reach out to us and include all of us.
I wanted it to be eyeball to eyeball, so I remained silent.
Phil, you don't have a phone, so it's
you can't text.
No one said,
it
"Are you
was
going to
great.
call her?" They just said they waited. I said, "But wait till she gets here."
Well, so when Lisa and I met you at the airport when you guys flew in, and of all things, we get into that. I forgot I never told that story, Jase, cop stories, because there's a police officer out there at the airport, and he's hardly ever there. And so normally it's no big deal about leaving your cars up front, but that day he happened to be there, giving me a hard time about us having 2 vehicles there. And I'm dealing with him when we have our big moment. Y'all are coming up, trying not to get a ticket, and I'm explaining everything to him. But anyway, when we hugged you guys, I mean, we all started crying. And we started crying when we got in the truck. Because I had been like, I'm not a big crier, but as I've gotten older, I've gotten more emotional. But like, it was kind of just pin up for me because like just the idea of you guys. And so to actually physically see you, even though we had pictures of you, it was a powerful moment. And we kind of cried there for the first 10 minutes until we said, all right, enough of that. And we drove out to my house for the initial meeting, and then we had a bigger one with Willie and everybody. Because it was interesting because Dad had a request that he wanted to just talk to you for a few minutes, just the two of you guys, if that was okay. And you said it was. And so we kind of met in the yard or, in the driveway and had our initial hugs. And then you and Dad kind of talked for, 45 minutes, just the two of y'all on the couch. And the rest of us were in the kitchen. And
everybody had warned me that he's not very nurturing and be prepared. And if they hadn't told me that, I would have never known. I found you to be very nurturing, grabbed me by the
held your
hands.
hand and he led you into the...
Well, good. I haven't heard this part.
Yeah, because you weren't there for this part.
Jase, you never saw my gentle side.
No, all I got was the hammer.
I mean, I was in shock, and I've lived with him, how long, 50 years?
Well, it's not every day that you look out and say, I didn't know I had a daughter for 45 years, but she's just around the door. Right
I like how you're looking at your watch and you've never owned a watch in your life.
Like if there had only been a watch there.
That's the humor.
If you've never heard of this girl and all of a sudden they're like, you have a daughter that you didn't know existed for 45 years, it's a little interruption in your schedule.
Yeah, it's a shock.
As far as your thinking goes, I'm like, I did tell her pretty quickly, girl, you're the best thing that ever came out of my past.
Yeah.
Because up until
Again.
she showed up, I had nothing good to say about what happened before I repented. I have nothing good. I just walled it off, the life of sin, and I left it and hid out and finally got on my feet in the faith. But you say, and you thought that was it. That's right. It's behind me, rearview mirror, and it's been so long ago that it's just a blur now.
Right.
But I look up, and here comes this girl out of the blur, out of the blue, out of the blur, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, if you never knew you had a daughter, and 45 years later she's standing in front of you, you're like,
yeah,
it's overwhelming. It's funny because Dad, until you got here, Phyllis, Dad kept calling you little girl to me. And
I was thinking kid.
He would say,
but I forgot the
the little
45
girl.
years.
Tell me about the little girl. I said, Dad, she's 45 years old. She's not a little girl.
He took me out on the boat a couple days ago, and he still calls me little girl.
Yeah.
Well, you're Willie.
Little girl, just pull that boat.
And I
Well,
said,
they say
Well, it's
daughter,
weird.
and I was thinking daughter.
It's weird how everybody responded. Man, I was kind of hot a little bit because I asked you, I was like, how did you not know this? But you were like, because I thought you were going to say, well, I just forgot. But you're like, no, I didn't know. And I was
didn't.
like, oh.
Well, Jason, you've quickly forgotten the way he was in those 10 years.
Which is a positive
Which
thing.
is a positive.
Look, that's what I'm saying. A lot of the way it's hard for me, I shared in the last podcast about this. Even some of the stories I've heard from his old buddies and the ones that were still alive, it's just hard. We're so far past that now.
That's right.
That it's just hard to imagine that.
Let's take one last break. So after this initial thing at my house, which was probably about an hour, we went over to Willie's house, and that's where you met Jason and Missy, and Jep was there.
Met us again, sort of.
Well, right, yeah,
officially.
I guess that's right. But where he wasn't in the fog. And Willie and Corey. And so from my perspective, Phyllis, I'm interested to see what you thought about it then, is I was afraid of you being overwhelmed because we're a huge family. And you haven't had a huge family. I mean, you guys have been pretty tight. And so, like, I was thinking, because we got cousins, and you're still meeting people,
Yes.
Every time you're down here, you meet more people that are related to us. So did you feel overwhelmed? Like that first day, I know that first part was emotional, and yet very touching. And I felt not very awkward, which surprised me. I never felt awkward.
There was never any awkward.
Which is so weird thinking about that. We did not know you at all.
It was just like puzzle pieces clicking into place.
Isn't that amazing?
Made sense. It felt right. It was like I've always known you in a way.
That's right.
And just a lot of like-mindedness. So it was never awkward and overwhelming, maybe a little, but there were the 6 of us there, since you invited all of us. So we had pockets of people who were able to visit, and we just kind of went from person to person. There's always food involved. Anytime there's great food involved.
Of course.
I gave her a hug, which I'm not in the habit of doing, but I put my hands on her face because I've just realized DNA said she's mine, my daughter. So I put my hands on her face and I'm looking at her eyes.
Well, I'm glad that wasn't weird for you.
That was
you survived that.
And I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, okay, if she's mine, I ought to see a little bit of me in her. So I'm just looking at her face, and I thought.
Well, what I meant was from her perspective, Phil. From her perspective, while you're doing that means your face was close to hers, and she's was like,
thinking, "This is
scary."
She was thinking, this guy's Joe Biden here. So? But you're kind of a composite to me of. Because there are not a lot of Robertson women. Dad had 2 sisters, and there's a few girl cousins, but not a ton. It's way more male-centric family, at least our generation. But you have a composite of a lot of my, I can see some of my Aunt Judy in you, my Aunt Jan, especially when you get on one of your rants, because you can do a pretty good rant. Yeah. And, a couple of my girl cousins. Mm-hmm. So you do have that, and Jase is right. You look a lot like Granny, in some ways like Dad's mom, which I hate. You never got to meet them because they were very special to us, obviously. So now you got the stories and
what's
the pictures.
interesting
That's
to me
good and bad.
Is that your mother named you, not telling you who your father is, but named you Phyllis. Had you thought about that, or did you think about that when it finally?
Our oldest son was the first to realize that and messaged and was like, Phyllis. Question,
that hit me one.
Lisa
in the process,
and
I was like,
that is
turning into a Lifetime movie here. You know what I mean?
This could be a Lifetime movie.
That is kind of weird.
It was very weird.
But I'll echo what they said. I know the DNA, and I believe in that. But I knew you were my sister pretty quickly when you were. I thought, well, she doesn't mind a good argument, which I really like. I said,
amen again.
And I said, she's pretty blunt. I was telling Missy, I said, she's blunt. I was like, yep, definitely my sister.
It's true stuff.
So, yeah. So it was cool.
So, Phyllis, all I can tell you is I'm glad you found me. I'm glad I found you. All I have to say is welcome aboard.
I'm glad God found both of you.
Ms. Kay, what do you have to say, little bit?
I have to say this. Who stayed with you 10 years through all of that?
I'm glad you stayed with me to witness this and how it all worked out.
I know.
What a gracious, kind, godly woman you are.
Because, think about it.
I had so much.
She had every reason to call me.
Well, everybody I knew and every member of my family and even your family, except your mom and dad, said, you're an idiot to stay with him. You're going to be like a welcome mat. You
So
just
why
stomp
did
on
you
him.
stay the course with a heathen like myself?
Well, you know what? You have my grandmother to thank for that. Nanny was her name. And she taught me about the Bible, and she always told me, she said, you just marry one man and it's one woman for one life. She said, there's no such word to me as divorce. Somebody created it, but it's not there. You'll never say it. I said, so I'll never say that? And she said, that's right. She said, and you're going to have to fight for your marriage. And I said, well, that's ridiculous. Why would I fight for my marriage? I've already planned it all out. Because I was going to marry a pioneer man, which I did.
Yeah.
And I was going to
What do you mean, Miss Kay, by pioneer man?
a woodsman, a fisherman, a man of the earth, a man that
An
could go.
outdoorsman.
She forgot
That could he could take me across America like they did back
in
in
the
the
1800s.
She forgot to tell you the Pioneer
wagon trail.
Man has some baggage.
She left that part out.
Yeah, well,
But I'd
that's
say you
why
nailed
she
it
told
on-
me
I'd
to
say you
fight for
nailed
my
it.
marriage.
Yeah.
Fight, and that's what I did. And other people would say, "Why would you live with him? He's a jerk." I mean, he's two-time, and you even know it. I mean, the Bible can release you from that.
Yeah.
I said, I know, but I choose to stay because I want my three boys, at that time it was three, to have this home. And they said, well, they're not seeing a lot of good stuff at that home. And I said, nope, it's in my heart. I can't leave. I just can't do it. And both of these, I will say, they fought for me the best they could against their dad when he was acting so bad. Jason one night came in and he pulled my hair, and Jason jumped on his back. You don't remember this. You was a little boy.
I remember you telling me about it because you were thankful, you know. And
I know, and I said, and he said, get off me, get off me. And Jason said, don't hurt my mama. Don't hurt my mama. I'm going to hit you. I'm going to do something to you if you hurt her. You know, and Phil's trying to shake him off, get him off his back. But, you know, it was so, that was a memory I had. Plus, Alan, he took care of everything. When things were bad, he was 7 years old, and he washed y'all, gave y'all a bath, fed y'all, put you to bed, took care of all that. He's 7.
Yeah. So
And then
I
it goes to
remember
9.
that Al as being like the father figure, you know, and then later on I was like, hey, let's kick me out of the nest because you know I don't want
So
you.
move on.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting for the $1,000 card, belated Father's Day
When
card.
she finally does step out, she's stepping out. I had been repentant for, just a few months. I repented a few months before you were born. So you came out of a sinful situation. But now that you're here, you say, I've been following Jesus for 45 years. So
Absolutely.
it is.
God's hand has been on my life, all my life. And that grace that God was extending to you, saving you and changing you and your family, I believe that extended to me.
I'm sure.
Somehow. I don't understand that exactly, but God is mysterious and big and great, and I just believe that that's what happened.
And you wouldn't even have a baby brother if I hadn't stayed.
And now,
I doubt, Al, that this is the only time this has ever happened.
Oh, I'm sure.
What do you think?
it happens quite a
For
bit.
all of, give a few words for the
Well,
ones out
so-
there that might.
Look, it's all in being in a position of a believer for when you receive any kind of news, especially something life-changing, that you'd be ready for it. And I think our family was, and certainly your family was, which is what merged us. So I just want to thank our Unashamed podcast audience. You realize, nobody has known this story. We share it with you first because you guys give us your time to be able to listen to the Bible. So we wanted you to hear Phyllis's story first from us, and we're proud to be able to do that. We got a little more we're going to talk about. Those of you who are at blazetv.com/unashamed subscribers, we're going to give you an opportunity to have a little more of our conversation. But for our Unashamed audience, thank you so much. And we'll keep doing Bible study. That's what we do. So we're so glad you guys were with us today. You can subscribe on iTunes or Spotify or YouTube or Facebook, and be sure and rate us on iTunes so that other people can know about the podcast.